Sound off, sounding good, like you should, ought to be, Hollywood, oh yeah, run a little, run a lot, airborne, a rigger, where you at, where you at, all right, hey, airborne, a rigger, pack 'em up, jump 'em out, all right, all night, all day, fit to fight, on the run, oh yeah, all right, hey you, where you going, airborne, where you going, oh yeah, harness it, load 'em up, all right, airborne, 1 minute, oh yeah, all night, rock steady, on the run, on the jump, hey you, silver wings, on my chest, jump master, all right, hey, all right, oh no, hey, here we go, drop zone, coming up, stand by, go.
He's waiting on us to come pick him up, and then we're heading straight over to Mr. Jackson's. So, we're ready to go. Let's go get it done.
I'm from Southwest Georgia, where I grew up.
Okay.
And in Colquitt County. And my father was a beekeeper. And I learned that trade while I was growing up. The Great Depression was moving along while I was growing up also. And in 1940, when I enlisted in the service, I was working for $8 a month and board. I went to the Army and started drawing $21 a month, and I thought I was getting rich. Well, the idea of going into service was exciting to me, and being a paratrooper was a lot more exciting. That was right down my line. I didn't have enough education and so forth to become a pilot, so I opted for the paratroopers. Well, I was a rookie in the 2nd Armored Division at that time, and there was a lot of old soldiers in the outfit. It was in the process of changing over from horses to tanks, and so those old soldiers, a lot of them liked to hang around the tent and play cards on payday. And they would borrow, when they run out of cash, they'd borrow $20 from me, and the next month they'd pay me back $40. I was getting a good deal. I wound up in California in the Sacramento Valley in the 13th Armored Division. By that time I was a staff sergeant, and I sure didn't like being there. It looked like we were going to just spend the duration of the war right there guarding the West Coast, and I didn't like that. I wanted to get into the action. So I put in for a transfer to the paratroopers. My company commander didn't like that too much. He says, you can go, but you'll have to leave your rank here. So that didn't make any difference to me. When I went to the paratroopers, I was drawing a couple of dollars more there than I was as a staff sergeant in the tank car. So it didn't take me long to get on my way. They were looking for guys like me, I guess, that were dissatisfied somewhere else. A lot of hard training, and it was really hard in those days. They didn't have any limits on what they could do to you or put you through. I run as much as 15 miles without stopping. And if you didn't do everything that you was told to do or they thought you should do to qualify, you were out. But I never failed on anything. And
did you start with your airborne training, or did you start with your basic infantry training first when you got to Benning?
Well, I had had a lot of infantry training when I went into the 2nd Armored Division. And so when I went to Benning, I went straight into the parachute training. When we started training there, we got up in the morning very early and run about 5 miles, come back and had breakfast, went to the gym and spent an hour and a half in the gym doing exercises. Really, when we went out of the gym, we had some instructions, you know, about what the whole picture was and what we were into. And then we took that long run. And when we come back, we jumped into that river and had a good swim. And the day was just about over by that time. So we didn't go anywhere. We just hit the sack, got rested for another day, over and over. And till we got to the time of jumping. And we jumped 5 times and when we qualified. The instructor would say, give me 50 push-ups. You'd fall down and give him 50 push-ups and set up. You'd say, did you cheat? Nope. Give me 50 more for not cheating.
What did it mean for you to be able to put those wings on your chest?
To me, it was the greatest thing I'd ever experienced. I felt like I was really something. I never had much fear of anything, so I enjoyed what I was doing. I was having a ball, and I looked forward to every jump. And we jumped, when we went to England, I don't know how many jumps we had over there. It was just over and over. Everything we did in England was preparing us for that one jump into Normandy.
Yeah. To me, it's the best thing because I want to show the new paratroopers who came before us. Because the paratroopers that I looked up to were the old Vietnam vets. The Vietnam vets looked up to the World War II and the Korean War vets because they were still in the service, so they could still hear those stories. So it always tickles me when I get a chance to talk to a World War II veteran, especially a soldiered with 2 combat jumps, 2 of the most notorious combat jumps in American history, Operation Overlord and Operation Market Garden. And to find out that you are also fought in the Battle of the Bulge and you were hit in the Battle of the Bulge is beyond anything that I could ever dream about, of being able to talk to you and to being able to say that I met a soldier that jumped in D-Day, Market Garden, and the Battle of the Bulge, and was in the same division that I was in when I first came in the Army.
Thank you. And I never knew where I was going till I got to North Ireland. We stayed there a few days in North Ireland, and then went down to southern England, and that's where the 101st was coming together, all of the different parts. I could see that we were getting prepared to go, but had no idea where.
Right.
And we didn't know until the time come, and we went to an airport, and the bushy shrubs around the airport, we camped there for a couple of weeks, and they set up sand tables and map sessions and so forth. And after a couple of weeks there, the Colonel Johnson assembled us. You know where we're going, you know why we're going, and you know when we're going. And everybody said when. He pulled his old dagger out and slapped it into the air. He says, before the sun rises again, I hope to have this knife in the heart of the foulest German in France. He was a really strong man, mentally and physically. And it was either his way or the highway. In that regiment, his name was Geronimo. And his men were Geronimo warriors. He had a patch for his regiment depicted Geronimo, a shoot, and Geronimo holding a bolt of lightning. And his superiors tried to get him to change that, and he wouldn't do it. He kept that patch, and it stayed with the regiment till it was deactivated in 1945. And that regiment has never existed since then.
Once he made his speech, and you guys are getting ready to get on that plane, what was the vibe between yourself and your fellow paratroopers as we're starting to gear up and load out?
Yeah, well, we had supply bundles that we had to take with us. The men were carrying from 70 pounds to 140 pounds. And usually they put the biggest load on the biggest men. So I was a little runny fella. I took about 70 pounds.
Tell me a little bit about when Ike came and talked to you guys before you made that jump.
But Eisenhower was more or less giving the men their blessing and reminding them of what they were doing and what it was for and so forth.
tell me a little bit about getting on that plane, and is those aircraft, all of those aircraft out there start to crank those engines. Talk to me a little bit about what the feeling was and what that ride over was like.
My feeling was that we were just going to do a job, and I don't remember any fear. The only time I really had fear was when we were going over the drop zone in Normandy, and a large explosion either hit the plane or close to the plane, and it flipped it into a dive. And at that altitude, I just knew that we were going to hit the ground before the pilot could pull it out. But he revved the engines wide open, and he started pulling that plane out. The G's were so great it forced every one of us flat on the floor. When the pilot got it back up high enough he thought we could go out, he gave us the green light. And I don't think a man in that plane went out standing up. We crawled out, tumbled out, any way we could get out that door.
Did you have bundles that you had to push out ahead of you, or was it just everybody get out as fast as you possibly could?
Everybody got out as fast as they could. The planes were in a comparatively close formation, and the anti-aircraft guns were shooting from a wide area, and it made it look like all of those tracers were coming straight at me. And it looked like a ball of fire slowly floating through the air, and it would whip by you real quick. They called it the greatest display of fireworks in history. Flares busting everywhere, and all those tracer bullets going. But it didn't take but a few seconds after I hit the silk to land in the water.
Talk to me about what the altitude was, at the best you can remember, about where it is when you made the exit from the aircraft. And then tell me a little bit about that opening shock. Is all of this great fireworks display is taking place around you, and these guys are trying to shoot you down. Tell me a little bit about the exit, that opening shock, and what it was like for you between the time you exited and the time you actually got on the ground.
Well, I'll tell you that there was no time to get fear. I believe that's the way it was. It was, everything was happening too fast to be afraid. And I was seeing all of this, and it only seemed like just seconds to get to the ground after I got the opening shot. And it was supposed to be about 400 feet. With those old chutes, it didn't take you long to make that.
The last time that I was over here, you and I sit down and we talked, and you told me a story about a young man that shot himself in the foot. Can you tell that story about the ride over there, the young man, as you guys were getting ready to leave, that shot himself in the foot?
Yep. Evidently he thought if he shot himself in the foot, he'd just go on around with the plane and go back to England. But when he shot himself in the foot, he was in there with Lieutenant Hamilton. And Lieutenant Hamilton grabbed him and threw him out the door.
Did you ever see him again?
Nope. I don't know if he survived. I wouldn't think he did. Every other man there would praise Lieutenant Hamilton for his action there.
Right.
What was it like when you were actually on the ground?
Well, when I landed, I was about this deep in water. I looked out there a few steps away, and there was Howard Johnson, the colonel. So I hustled out there where he was, and me and him started towards our objective, and as we went along, we picked up men from the 82nd, the 101st, whatever we come across, he took them. And time we had to, I figured we were about a quarter of a mile from our objective, but we had to fight our way all the way there. And time we got to the pump, the locks, we had about 75 men. We took the locks and held them. I remember a cow had been shot down there, and I was under pretty heavy fire. I got right down between her front legs and back legs and started digging. And we held those locks. We held those locks for about 24 hours, I'd say. And then we started moving towards Carrington. Well, I was told that the 506 took Carrington, then the Germans took it back from them. And then we were pulled up to face Carrington, and the tank outfit that I was in the 2nd Armored Division pulled up side of us. So we took Carrington the second time, and the Germans never got into it again.
Talk to me about what happened before you guys got ready to move to Holland. Give us a little bit of background information on your time spent there in between taking Carrington before you guys went to Holland.
Well, after we got back to England, we were sitting on ready all the time. Several times we were scheduled to make jumps ahead of the Allied armies, and every time that it come time for us to do it, General Patton overrun our drop zone. And it kept going on that way. And then when he got turned loose, he just raced across France. And Montgomery had the idea that he could make a big airborne operation and go around this heavily fortified positions and get into Germany real quick. So for some reason or other, Eisenhower let him do it. And every man that I ever heard say anything about that decision was that was a bad one Eisenhower made. He should have let Patton do it if he was going to let anybody do it. The Germans said the same thing. They criticized Eisenhower for giving that job to Montgomery, and the Germans respected Patton as a military genius. I think he was.
What led up to the jump into Holland, and then what took place immediately afterwards?
But I remember very well making the jump, and at least one snafu that we made. Our division was supposed to jump in a place called Erd. The people over there, I believe they call it Erdy. And the first battalion, my battalion, was supposed to go in there and make a turn to the left and drop right at Erdy. Then the second battalion was supposed to follow up right close by. Well, they didn't make, with the first battalion, they didn't make that turn. They flew right on by. The second battalion made the turn and dropped at Erdy. And then we were off out yonder, away from our objective, you see. The second battalion were back here working on it, and we were running several miles to try to get back there and get our part of the deal done. And Erdy had a big windmill. It changed hands several times back into to the Germans. The Germans wanted to use it for observation, and so did we. And right there in that battle is where Howard Johnson got fatally wounded. A lot of them thought he would have survived, except that he, like a wild man, he was running up and down trying to control his men and them bleeding to death, you know. The English people were friendly. We had maybe a couple of million soldiers in their country defending there. I might add something that was said between the English troops and the American troops. One of our news commentators was questioning some English troops, and he asked, what is it you don't like about the American troops? One of the English soldiers said, well, they're overpaid, they're oversexed, and they're over here. And the Dutch people, they couldn't have been more cooperative and friendlier and ready to do anything to help. In Bastogne, I didn't, and I don't think the other American soldiers had any chance to really get acquainted with the Belgian people and know what they were, because it was such a struggle.
Right.
And they lost 500 or 600 civilians died there, and a lot of others froze to death.
Yeah.
And it was a fight all the way. There was no let up.
Market Garden has taken place, and now, as I understand it, that's the next big move for you guys to make. So talk to me about, once you were notified that that's where you were going, tell me about the trip to get there. How did you get from Holland to Belgium? And why was Bastogne important?
Bastogne was important because the German thrust was headed straight for Bastogne, and Bastogne had 7 main roads running through it. Eisenhower wanted to deny the Germans the use of those roads. So he ordered the 101st to seize Bastogne and hold it. And
now there was another unit already there, right? Before you got there, there was somebody else already trying to hold?
yes, a tank outfit in the 10th Armored Division. It was a combat team.
How'd you get to Bastogne?
Well, they wanted us there the quickest way they could get us there. To do a jump, it might take a week to get everything assembled and go. So they rounded up all the cattle trucks in the area there in France, and they packed us in them. And it was a miserable ride all night long, going to Bastogne. We got there just before daylight, and the 1st Battalion of the 501 was always the spearhead battalion. The B Company, which I was in, was the spearhead company. When we got there, the trucks pulled up and stopped. We unloaded and marched, didn't stop. We marched right straight to towards Neffy. And we had some fighting to do before we got to Neffy. Lost quite a few men. But when we got to Neffy, in that area we fought a 10-hour battle that stopped the Germans' push, and they never got the momentum to go into Bastogne again. That was the 19th day of December when we met the Germans at Neffy. It began to snow, really dropped temperature, hovered around zero all the time we were in there, and snowed 12 to 15 inches of snow. What it looked like to me was we were moving in on one side of Bastogne, and the Germans in a blizzard was moving in on the other side. And that made it, we went in there with Army field jackets on to face that weather, you know. We were drastically underclothed. I was thinking all the time that the weather was just as bad as the Germans. Of course, I guess the weather was hurting them too. A lot of them froze to death. Food we didn't have, and ammo, by the time we got resupplied, we were right down to our last rounds. Those 47s had come over dropping supply bundles, and the boys would run from one bundle to the other. If they opened it up as hungry as we were and there was food in it, they dropped it and run to the other one looking for ammunition. Well, that was a great relief to everybody, because without ammunition we'd be sunk. Patton's Third Army made contact with the 101st on the 26th day of December. It didn't make any difference to us. I didn't see any difference. The fighting was just as bad, and the weather was just as bad right on. There was a big snow on the ground. The temperature was hovering around zero, and there was large patches of dense fog slowly moving through the area, and a big block of fog would move away, and there's German troops. A big fight starts, and we improvised things to cover up you know, to protect from the weather and to give some protection from the Germans, get where you could see them before they see you. And there was Germans who spoke English and had on American uniforms throughout the place. And when an American trooper or soldier come up to you, you didn't know where he was German or what, and you had to try to find out some way, you know, with questions or ask him things maybe that a German wouldn't normally know. It was that kind of stuff really kept you on top all the time. You had to be extremely alert. The 506 got into a really tough deal there when at Noville. I believe this claim it was 33 German tanks was firing on Noville, and the 506 was trying to hold it. Nighttime come, the 506 slipped out and left it. And later when they come back, the way they put it was there was no Ville. Those tanks were bloated away. I know me and my buddy was in a foxhole there, and we had to crawl over a couple of German bodies to get out. They got that close. The day I was wounded, that was the 12th day of January, and the siege had been lifted then for a couple of weeks. But the fighting was just as bad, if not even worse. And my outfit was ordered to clear the Germans out of an area, and it turned into quite a battle.
Did it ever get to a point where you thought this is not a winnable situation? Did you feel that it was inevitable that the Germans were going to overtake you there?
No, I'll tell you how I felt. I felt just like that tank commander did that was there. When we first got there, one of the officers that was from headquarters went out and told him, says, we're sending you up a battalion of paratroopers. He says, you send me a battalion of paratroopers and I'll go on the attack. That's the way I felt all the way through. The other guys did too. We knew we wasn't going to lose that battle. We were getting a lot of machine gun fire. And me and some of the other guys were trying to outflank them and get around where we could get in a better position when I got hit. And it got me in the hip joint. Well, one of our medics come up to where I was in a few minutes, and he gave me a shot of morphine, and he said, Jackson, you lucky dog, you're going home. But I didn't feel very lucky right then, so anyway, he went on with the rest of them, and it moved away from me, and I say I was there about 3 hours before they come and pick me up. But there was a lot of men being killed and wounded that day. because when they finally got me on a Jeep and raced back through the forest to a building that looked like a one-room schoolhouse or a church building. They had in all the parking lot, they had men on stretchers laying there, giving them blood and so forth, same as they did me. And I assumed that they had that building full, so that they were really taking care of a lot of wounded people there. They got me put me in one of those Army ambulances and hauled me to Luxembourg, to a place that looked like a meat processing place, and the tables in it was like big tables that you'd put an animal up and cut him up and so forth, you know, and that's what they were doing surgeries on. So they did a surgery on me there, and they put fixed it away from my wounds to drain, and sewed me back up. A day or two later, they went back in there and tried to get all the shrapnel and stuff that they could out, and they put when they finished with me, they put a cast from about here down on both legs, spread my legs out like that, and put a bar in between. I couldn't turn over. I couldn't sit up. I assumed that it was because they gave me so much of the painkillers that I didn't remember things, because the next thing I knew, I woke up in the first general hospital in Paris, France. And I remember being awake there for a few minutes, and I was back out again. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital in England. I don't know how long I was out. And but after I woke up in England, I pretty much remembered everything that went on from there.
Mr. Jackson, you're 92 years old now, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your life post-war and how the war affected your life.
Afterwards.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, they had 16 million men under uniform. And as soon as the war was over, what they wanted to do was get rid of all those people in the army. And it brought the recession, the depression, right back in. So there was some hard years after World War II, pretty much as bad as it was during the Depression. Going from 5 years of military service like I'd been through, and going back into civilian life was a big shock to me. I couldn't get a job. When I worked, I had to work, for really cheap stuff. I couldn't stay in the service because I'd got banged up too bad. So I just had to hang in there with it till it got better. Of course, I could always count on my father and his bee business, and I worked for him, and he didn't pay very well, but I could live.
Through all of this conflict that you've been through over the course of time, what kept your spirits up? What kept driving you forward to make it through all of that, to be able to be with us today?
Determination. I've never been willing to stop or give up.
We talked about the training earlier today that you went through, what it took to become part of that hat that you're wearing there on top of your head. What was the difference between someone who endured that training and was able to put those wings on and be considered a paratrooper versus everybody else?
We were better than they were. We're kind of getting back to determination. It took a lot of it to become a paratrooper. You know that yourself.
Is that part of what helped sustain you, for example, in Bastogne, as long as you knew that's who you were there with?
Absolutely.
When I met you back several months ago, and I met Bill, one of the things that keeps coming up and keeps resonating for guys like me who were in the service as well, obviously fought in a different time, and at times, you know, it's interesting, our stories really aren't that different.
Yeah.
The enemy may be a little bit different, but what we've all been through is really not. But soldiers like me and kids from my generation and young men from my generation, we look at people like you and we use a term, and I think it gets thrown around very loosely today, but we call you a hero. Have you ever considered yourself to be a hero in any way? Do you think you served with some?
Yes, sir.
Are those guys that wore that same patch you did?
Yep.
And he ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more. Zoom, 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 zoom.
He counted long, he counted loud, he waited for the shock. He felt the wind, he felt the cold, he felt the awful drop. The silk from his reserve spilled out and wrapped around his legs.
And he ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more. Zoom, 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 zoom.
The riser swung around his neck, connectors cracked his dome. Suspension lines were tied in knots around his skinny bones. The canopy became his shroud, he hurtled to the ground.
And he ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more. Zoom, 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 zoom.
For days he lived and loved and laughed, kept running through his mind. He thought about the girl back home, the one he left behind. He thought about the medicos and wondered what they'd find.
And he ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Determination. I've never been willing to stop or give up.